Hey Ocean Crew, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Karen and I'm from Ocean Chicks Films. Today we're going to finish off part 2 of the Survivorman Bigfoot series that we were watching last week. The last few episodes were really good, especially the final episode. So let's talk about that. So I needed to watch the last 5 episodes, so those are the ones we'll talk about tonight. Episode 1, Alberta. Episode 2, British Columbia. Episode 4, Foothills of the Rockies. Episode 8, Texas, Utah. And Episode 9, The Hidden World. But first, I'm going to show you my snack. Today I'm having a Salt Spring Island kombucha in blue algae. I don't know if you can really see it on here, but it's really a pretty shade of blue. It's that same blue spirulina that I used for that smoothie a few episodes back. This one's excellent. And it's got the blue-green algae. It's got cinnamon in it, I think green tea, and some other stuff. It is so delicious. Really, really good. Let's have a drink of that. So good. I love the little bit of cinnamon in there too. Very nice and refreshing. All right, back to the review. So in the first episode, Les travels to Alberta and he hangs out with a Bigfoot expert there, name of Todd Standing, and Todd takes him through the bush out there. He's also in the British Columbia episode. He goes there as well, and they hunt for Bigfoot. And Todd has some audio recordings and also some photographs of Bigfoot that he claims to have, you know, seen the actual thing. And a lot of what I'll be talking about in this episode will be kind of a repeat because I went out of order with some of the episodes, and this was the first one. This was the one where Les learned most of the information he needed to track Bigfoot, what he was looking for, and that kind of thing. So of course Todd has showed him these unusual tree formations in the forest that he believes are sort of a marking of trails, sort of a boundary where Bigfoot saying, this is our territory, that's your territory, don't cross the line, and that kind of thing. He shows Les leaving offerings of apples to kind of entice Bigfoot out of the woods so that they can kind of get validation that he's there. And one interesting thing that happens is the two of them are walking down this path and they hear a sound, like a whoop sound, and both are kind of stopped dead in their tracks, and even Les is a bit not sure what that was, whether it was an animal, a bird or something, or whether it was a Bigfoot. You're kind of left not knowing. In episode 2, they go to British Columbia, so Todd and him go off there and explore the forests. Beautiful scenery again. They find more of the tree formations, and Les makes an observation that it looks almost like one is larger than another beside it, thinking maybe perhaps that the young Bigfoot are learning from the elders how to do these tree formations. Who knows? And then at this stage we get to hear Todd's audio recordings, and they're quite something actually. There's a future episode where there's more kind of sounds like that, and it just kind of makes you wonder. Sounds that I've never heard before myself either. You know, sort of growling, and I guess Todd was there in the middle of the night by himself, and he a little bit freaked out, understandably. This thing's running around him and growling at him and screaming at him, and he's trying to chase it away. So it's quite something. You should watch that episode for sure. They head further up the mountain to try to cross that barrier where the Bigfoot have sort of drawn their lines, and head further up, you know, where there's really no people up there. It's a little harder to get to in search of a Bigfoot or any evidence that they exist. And then they leave us with that idea that it's certainly possible that something like that could potentially exist up there. There's lots of food, lots of space for them to hide out. So you just have to wonder. I feel myself that I think it's entirely possible. I really do. There's lots of species in the deep depths of the ocean where humans can't even scuba dive to because they would die from the pressure. That there's lots of species there that exist that we don't know about yet either, that haven't been discovered. So I think it's entirely possible, and it's a really interesting series to watch. I mean, there are lots of shows out there about Bigfoot and Sasquatch. There's lots of researchers, there's lots of people searching and hunting for them. So it's quite a neat field to dabble into and have a look at for sure. Episode 4, he heads out with Todd again. It's called Foothills of the Rockies, so they're in Alberta. Beautiful scenery as well. Same kind of idea. They're tracking, and they put up cameras too to see if they can catch a glimpse. They're kind of putting up the bait, the apples, that kind of thing, to see if they can see a juvenile. From what the other shows that I've seen, people seem to think the juveniles are the ones that are coming closer to human areas, and kind of exploring and really curious about what's going on rather than the adults. I find that interesting. Seems plausible too, because if you have kids, you know that that's what they would try to do. Whereas the adults, if they are kind of this elusive species that are very intelligent and afraid of humans, and, you know, of course, being captured or decimated, they're hiding away that way, and the kids are curious. They want to see what the hell's going on with these people and what they're doing. And that was interesting in this episode, they end up finding this helicopter landing area that's kind of all grown over, and they're wondering why would that be there, and they're thinking maybe some sort of idea that the the government getting in and finding evidence of these creatures before other people do and covering it up, that kind of thing. So that was kind of interesting too. So episode 8 takes Les out of Canada into Texas and Utah, and he meets up with this fellow named Jeff Stewart, who's had some encounters, hooks up with him, and in this episode he doesn't mess around. He sets up lots of cameras, DNA traps that he can collect DNA if one walks over it, all sorts of things to try to find evidence. He sets up motion sensors, audio recorders, the whole 9 yards. But one thing that I've seen in other shows is that Bigfoot tends to shy away from the cameras and is well aware that they're there. So, you know, it seems kind of like that it probably wouldn't be successful, but he gave it a try anyways. This time he tries to do a gifting of marbles set in a little pattern to see if that'll draw their attention. So he camps out there overnight. The other party is like a little bit of ways from him, and I think on the camera on that episode he ends up catching a mountain lion walking by, which would freak me out a lot, but it's something, but it wasn't a Bigfoot. Then he heads to Utah to meet up with some other fellows, and same kind of stories, same kind of sightings. It's really strange because it seems, it could be a hoax, but it's pretty elaborate, and it's been going on for so long, all through North America. So much of the same kinds of things in different areas that are really similar and difficult to kind of, hoax, but it just kind of makes you wonder. So then they go to this hotspot there where there's lots of sightings called Bigfoot Highway, and his son comes down and visits with him at the same time, and they put out like these human and animal pheromones to see if they can attract Bigfoot. In the morning they wake up to snow, and I apologize, this is the episode, at this part is where the mountain lion is found on camera, and unfortunately no Bigfoot sightings there for him either. Then we go on to episode 9, which is The Hidden World. I think I enjoyed this episode the best. First of all, because it's out here where I live, and the scenery is, I am proud to say, the most beautiful countryside of all of North America is British Columbia, Canada. It's just gorgeous up here, and you can just see it in his camera shots. So he's out here still searching for answers, and he meets up with these two people, Sonia and Randy, and they kind of have a different approach to looking for Bigfoot or connecting with Bigfoot. There are several kinds of philosophies. There's the people that are sort of scientifically researching for documented proof of the existence of another species. There are people who think that maybe they come from aliens. There are people that think there are spiritual beings, the way that First Nations think that way. So Sonia and Randy teach Les how to meditate, to be more connected to the earth and connected to Bigfoot in a spiritual way, in hopes of enticing him out to, make this connection with him. And they offer gifts to him, like trinkets or food, that kind of thing. And they found that they would often have times where things would be given back to them, which from, they believe, Bigfoot, rather than other animals, because it would be like, intricate branch kind of art and branches placed in a certain way, stones placed in a certain way, all of that kind of thing. So they thought it just seemed more like something on the lines of Bigfoot rather than, animals like raccoons and squirrels and stuff like that. So I think that's a really interesting concept. I like the idea of that. I'd like to explore that some more, actually. I've also found tracks, and they have a photograph of what looks like a juvenile Bigfoot standing behind a large tree stump, which is really interesting too. Then in this episode, Les also hops on a plane, goes to California, and hooks up with this company called Sota Productions. And there's been so many movies made that these companies make costumes and things of Bigfoot, so that are very realistic and believable. So it's entirely possible that people are doing that kind of thing to create hoaxes in the wilderness. But he kind of shows us how it costs a lot of money to do that. It's not as easy to do as you think it is. And he's able to get them to manufacture these large Bigfoot feet that he can wear on his feet, with kind of stilts to make the footprints. Okay, and then he leaves that, he flies back to Ontario, takes these feet, and he makes prints in the snow, does castings of them so that he can get these castings of supposed Bigfoot feet. What he's doing is trying to establish whether it, in fact, things could be a hoax or whether it's real. And so he takes the foot casts. He also has some from Clemtu, BC, the ones where he found on the ground himself, and he did casts of those. He takes those two to these experts that are scientists and researchers, anthropologists in the field that actually study these Bigfoot findings from way back from the Patterson-Giblin documentation. So these scientists are Jeff Meldrum and John Bitterman. So they're experts in the field, but he brings these castings to them to see what they think. So right off the top, they just determine that the Clemtu footprint, even though it kind of looks a bit larger, it still very much resembles a human footprint, and they would pretty much claim that that's what that was. So Les was a little bit like, it looked bigger than that, though. You weren't there. But anyways, he let that one go, and he gave them the fake footprint that he took, the one that he created with the Hollywood team. And they looked at it, and at first were thinking, wow, that's an amazing specimen. But then they started comparing it to the other one that they have, and they were noting the similarities between the two. And then very quickly he decided, this, not to be rude, but this doesn't, kind of suspicious, so I'd have to look at this one further. And Les breaks down and says, well, this is what I did, and it's a fake. You were smart, you figured it out, and that it was kind of interesting that the idea that, they can detect fakes and they can see things that they feel could be real kind of implies that, you know, maybe these creatures do exist, and this is a species that's very elusive, very intelligent, and exists in the parts of nature that we have yet to explore. Really fascinating. I'm definitely, it's a topic that I really love. I'm going to keep looking at and watching films and reading information about it, and I'm going to keep going with it because I think it's a super, super, super fun thing to look at. And I hope one day that they do find that something like that exists. The only thing I pray is that, you know, we don't take advantage of this species, if it does exist, and completely obliterate them and destroy their land, because that would be really incredibly sad. All right, I've seen all 9 episodes now. A really worthwhile series to watch. If anything, the scenery is absolutely breathtaking. You have to watch it just for that alone. But if you're interested in Bigfoot, he talks to a lot of cool people in the field and uncovers some interesting things. It's a good series to watch. I will give the entire series 5 shark bites because it was that good. So I hope you enjoyed that, and if you did, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up because that helps me out a lot. And I've got a great recipe for you on Wednesday, and then we're going to do another movie review on Friday. So have a good couple of days, and we will see you again on Wednesday. Thanks guys, bye.